Welcome to today's journey through time. In this video, we're diving deep into the story of one of the most iconic and feared civilizations in ancient history, the Spartans. Known for their military prowess, unwavering discipline, and intense focus on survival, the Spartans dominated the ancient Greek world. But what made them so powerful, and how did they fall? Grab a seat, because we're about to explore the rise and fall of the Spartan Empire. To understand Sparta, we must first understand where they came from. Around the 10th century BC, the area we now know as Sparta was just a small region in the southern part of Greece. The Spartans originally lived as a part of the Dorian Greek tribe, and their society began with a focus on agriculture. But as time passed, they began to shift their focus entirely toward military strength and power. Sparta was unique because it didn't rely on the typical democratic practices of the time, like Athens did. Instead, their government was a mixed system, combining monarchy with a council of elders. Their king, however, wasn't just a figurehead. He led the army and made decisions based on military strategy, making him central to the city-state's identity. Spartan society quickly became militarized, with an emphasis on strength, discipline, and obedience. Young boys were taken from their families at age 7 and entered a state-run education system known as the agoge. This brutal training prepared them to be soldiers for life. They endured hardships, physical punishment, and were taught to value survival above all else. By the 6th century BC, Sparta began to expand its power, primarily through military conquests. Their most famous expansion came through their conquest of the neighboring Messenia, which became their first major slave population known as the Helots. These slaves were crucial to Spartan society, as they allowed Spartan men to focus entirely on military training. As Sparta's military became stronger, so too did their influence over the Greek world. Sparta became the dominant power in the Peloponnesian League, a coalition of Greek city-states bound together for mutual defense. The Spartans' military culture was growing stronger with every passing decade, and they quickly became feared across Greece. What made Sparta different from other Greek city-states? The answer lies in its military. Unlike Athens, which placed importance on intellectual pursuits and culture, Sparta's sole focus was on producing the perfect warrior. Spartan men weren't allowed to engage in trade or hold private wealth. Everything they did, from birth to death, revolved around their role as soldiers. From a young age, Spartans were taught to endure hardship, fight without hesitation, and above all, obey. Their primary military unit was the hoplite, a heavily armored infantryman armed with a spear and shield. But what set them apart was their phalanx formation, a tight-knit group of soldiers fighting in unison, shoulder to shoulder. This military strategy made them nearly unbeatable in battle. One of the most famous events of their military career was the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC, where King Leonidas I and his 300 Spartans made their legendary stand against the overwhelming Persian army. The battle wasn't a victory in the traditional sense, but it immortalized the Spartan ideal of self-sacrifice and courage. Their bravery inspired the rest of Greece to rally against the Persians, and the name of Sparta would echo in history forever. At their peak, the Spartans were at the head of the Peloponnesian League, and their influence stretched across much of Greece. In the 5th century BC, Sparta was the undisputed power in the region, having defeated their rivals in the Peloponnesian War. This period marked the height of Spartan military dominance. Despite their military successes, the Spartan society was beginning to face internal problems. The elite class of warriors, known as the Spartiates, started to dwindle in number, partly due to the high cost of maintaining a Spartan warrior lifestyle. Meanwhile, the Helot population continued to grow, leading to constant unrest among the slave class. Sparta's reliance on its militarized society made them vulnerable to internal strife. As the years went on, Sparta's military and political power began to wane. The Peloponnesian War left Greece weakened and divided, and other city-states began to rise in power. The Thebans in particular challenged Sparta's supremacy in the mid-4th century BC. In 371 BC, the Battle of Leuctra took place, where the Thebans decisively defeated the Spartan army. This marked the beginning of the end for Sparta's military dominance. Sparta had always relied on its warrior class and its rigid system of governance, but as time passed, they failed to adapt to new military tactics and strategies. Their inability to adjust to changing warfare, the rise of other Greek powers, and the gradual decline of their own population contributed to their downfall. Spartan society, which had once been the epitome of discipline and power, began to crumble under the weight of its own inflexibility. By the 2nd century BC, Sparta had been reduced to a shadow of its former self, eventually becoming part of the Roman Empire. Despite its eventual decline, the legacy of Sparta remains one of the most powerful in history. Their culture of discipline, courage, and sacrifice continues to influence military and martial cultures around the world. The Spartan code has been revered by soldiers and warriors throughout history, symbolizing strength, unity, and the will to endure against all odds. Today, we remember Sparta not just for its victories, but for the ideals it embodied. Sparta teaches us the importance of strength, resilience, and leadership, and their story continues to inspire those who value honor and bravery. So, while Sparta may no longer rule the ancient world, its lessons live on. The rise and fall of Sparta is a testament to the cyclical nature of history. Empires rise and fall, but their legacies endure. Thanks for joining me on this historical journey. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the past.